Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. And on today's episode, we're going to get the final draft tiers with the draft now tomorrow. As you guys listen to this, I'm gonna rank the tiers, kind of players 7 through 20, 25-ish on how I would feel about them if the Sharks drafted them. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, JD Young, a contributor at Fear the Fin and San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you for making us your first Sharks listen of the day. We're, of course, free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. It's been a busy couple hours or couple days here for the Sharks. So, of course, Mike Grier officially named the GM yesterday. We've got the draft here tomorrow, first round of the draft, and then rounds 2 through 7 on Saturday. But I wanted to kind of spend today. We talk so much about like kind of rankings and tiers, and who should the Sharks pick, and I kind of wanted to spend the day, today's episode is just talking about how it would feel for each one of these. We're going to talk about our feelings today on Locked On Sharks on how I'd feel, coming away from the first round if the Sharks drafted this player. So I kind of have 4 tiers here, and of the first tier I'm calling the okay kind of question mark tier, where I think no matter how the board broke, if this is who you're coming away with, I would probably have some questions on like maybe this wasn't the right person at this time. I think there might have been better talent available type of question. Then I also have the you can talk me into it. These are kind of players that are maybe it was a bit of a reach, or maybe not the right fit. Maybe again more of a reach, or more maybe there was just other talent, but if the board broke a certain way, you could talk me into it. Then you have I'd be pretty happy with these players. So these are the players where it's like, okay, the board didn't break the way you wanted to, or et cetera, et cetera. The players, and then finally the ecstatic. So these are like the guys where it's like, okay, if the Sharks draft one of these, it's going to be a successful first round for the Sharks. So I didn't include like the top kind of 7, guys, because there's just not too many possibilities where these guys are there. And if all those, if if Slavkovsky got to the Sharks at 11, you would be ecstatic, right? Like all these guys kind of automatically fit into the ecstatic tier, just because you would be getting such a value on the draft, of what their rankings are compared to where they got drafted at 11. So yeah, I didn't really, like kind of going off of Bob McKenzie's top rankings. So the guys I didn't really include, because again, they're just not like I don't see them being there. So we have, of course, Slavkovsky, Shane Wright, Logan Cooley, Simon Nemec, and David Yerk, and Cutter Gauthier. So those are the guys I did include, because there's a chance Cutter Gauthier is there, but I just don't see it. I think the way his stock has risen, I would be pretty shocked if he's there. So let's get into the okay tier. So these are the guys where I would just be like, maybe you can like, I don't think I would be a little disappointed walking away from the first round of the draft. So the first guy is Conor Geekie. I know he's got size and stuff, but I feel like he doesn't really drive play. He's on a really stacked team, and I think he benefits from playing on a really great team. And, I just think if you drafted him at 11, you're probably leaving better talent out there. Some of these other guys we're going to get into, and he's he doesn't really kind of float my boat, I guess, just the way he plays and stuff. And a lot of the draft scouts that we talked to throughout this whole process, they were just kind of meh about him and kind of had the same feeling of, yeah, he's big, but he doesn't really use his size well. And then he's big, but he plays like a small guy. And then, he's surrounded with so much talent where it's hard to determine if he's the one doing the work or if he's benefiting from playing with a lot of great talent on his team. So he's the first guy I would be like, okay. It's a guy, Ivan Marashchenko. We got it this time. Marashchenko. He oozes talent, and before the draft process, he was considered a top 3 to 5 guy. But there's so many red flags, and you don't know if he's ever going to get back to that guy that he was before this whole draft prospects. And I know he had a tough year, and then dealing with the cancer, and of course, and even before that, just wasn't really kind of playing the same way. I'm rooting for him, and I hope he does succeed and kind of proves everybody wrong. But again, if the Sharks pick him at 11, you're gonna probably feel like that's a bit of a reach for that type of guy, where you could, get somebody else and not kind of take such a huge risk. And I know, there is something about taking a risk and, swinging for the fences. And believe me, if he pans out, it's gonna look like a really smart pick. But I just think the chances of him fully reaching his potential, especially with everything that he's going through right now and everything that's going on, with Russia and all the red flags there, it just worries me that, unfortunately, the poor kid, he's nothing, that it's not his fault, but it's just, it's all about mitigating risks. So, and then the kind of the last guy in my okay tier is Pavel Mintyukov. Talked about him with Tony a couple weeks ago, and he's a very dynamic offensive forward. But his comp is basically bigger version of Ryan Merkley, right? And while the Sharks do need some blue line help in their prospect pool, I like those other defensemen in that kind of that second tier a little bit more. Your Krasinskis and your Denton Matichuks. Like, I like those guys a little bit more. I think, I don't want to say they're probably a little bit safer, because there's the chance where he just never really figures it out defensively. And you guys know, watching Bob Bugner and most coaches, like, you can do all the offensive stuff in the world if you're a defenseman, but if you can't play a defense, you're not going to get a real opportunity. And we saw him improve his defense throughout the season. It worries me that for a team that really needs to hit this pick, that using the pick on him where he may not pan out, that's what kind of worries me. So the okay question mark is Conor Geekie, Marashchenko, and Pavel Mintyukov. So we'll get into, in the next segment, we'll talk about guys you can talk me into, and then guys I'd be really happy with. But first, we got to take a quick break and talk to you guys about our friends over at BetOnline. You guys know BetOnline is the number one source for your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's Major League Baseball. You can bet on the draft. You can bet, they've got a bunch of, tomorrow we're going to go through some of the draft props as well. BetOnline's got a bunch of, you can actually draft where you think guys, you can bet on where you think guys are going to be drafted. Of course, you got NFL futures. I know football's right around the corner, guys. I can't believe it's already almost here. And then BetOnline's got you covered for no matter what you're into. So head over to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. So this next tier is the kind of guys you could talk me into. So most of these guys are guys that are going to be kind of a little bit lower in the rankings, where it's like, yeah, if the Sharks drafted him, like, I could see it and you could talk me into it, but it may not be the best, like, use of the asset type of thing. So it's nothing against these players. Like, I like a lot of these players that I'm going to mention, but again, it's, if you're drafting them at 11, do you feel like you're getting the best value for him? So we'll start with the first one, Marco Kasper, and he's been kind of up there, kind of closer to where the rankings, and I've seen him mocked to the Sharks. And I feel like he's a very safe pick, but I don't know if he has the highest ceiling compared to some of the other guys that could be around at that same time. So, we Mike Grier talked about he wanted a tenacious in your face team, and that's Marco Kasper. And so it makes me think that they might be leaning that way a little bit, but at the same time, I think there's a lot more guys too that the Sharks could be looking at. And I mean, something to also think about too is, Mike Grier's a college hockey guy. You wonder if he's going to be kind of more prone to selecting these college hockey guys. And, Kasper, of course, is a European player. So you wonder if he, coming down to the final decisions, if it's between a couple of these guys, he might lean college hockey just because, he went that route and he knows how successful it is. And we've seen the Sharks, have success with some of these college hockey players that are starting to come in through this system. Thomas Bordeleau and Scott Reedy and Jasper Weatherby. Some of these guys who are going through the college route and they're going to, producing NHL caliber players. So, yeah. So Marco Kasper, first guy, Daniil Yurov. Again, I don't know. I know there's a lot of people really high, former host Eric Fowl is really high on Daniil Yurov. It's just, talking with Scouch, he does a lot of stuff really well, but don't know if he has that like one elite thing that you can kind of bank on, hit that translatable skill for him. So you could talk me into it with Yurov. And then some of these other guys who are probably ranked a little bit lower. So that's why I don't really have them. That's why I have him in this tier. Like Yuri Kulich, Scouch said he might be a guy who kind of sneaks up to the top. He wouldn't be surprised if he kind of was floating around the top 10. Jimmy Snuggerud, again, I think is going to be a fine player, but again, like, would you rather have, like Ole Kirimäki or Snuggerud at 11? And, they're both fine players. I think Kirimäki has that super elite, like, potential if everything goes right with him. And, Snuggerud could do that as well. Again, it's about the value of the pick at number 11. And kind of same thing with Isaac Howard, where, they are, again, a little bit lower. Could they be a potential, kind of steal at 11 if everything clicked right? Yes, or again, if you wanted a guy like that, you could potentially move down a couple spots and be able to pick him. And then Rutger McGroarty, who best name in the draft, but again, is that same thing where like he might be the third kind of forward on the U.S. national development team, where behind Cooley and Nazar and then Rutger McGroarty. And, nothing against McGroarty. I think he's going to, I think he has potential to be like an elite 3C for a team. I helped out with the SB Nation mock draft and I had him going to the Ducks at 22. And I was like, wow, man, if the Ducks have Trevor Zegras, Mason McTavish, and then, Rutger McGroarty, that's a pretty sick 1, 2, 3, but they're getting him at 22. If you're picking an elite 3C at 11, again, it's about the value. You could talk me into it and be like, you know what, maybe he can grow into, maybe if he's an elite 3C, maybe he's a solid 2C in the next level. But again, the Sharks just don't have that depth, that center depth where you could kind of, be like, yeah, you can play 3C and be one of the best 3Cs in the league. And then if you need to play up, you can play up, instead of being like, no, you got to pan out to be a 2C or a 1C for a guy who's kind of projected to go, mid to kind of in the 20s for the draft. So, and then these next guys, these are the guys I'd be really happy with. So, Joachim Kimmel, who we didn't really do too much. Again, I don't think he's going to be there for the Sharks. But he that dude can score. I know his little worrisome about kind of the league and stuff that he plays in, if that's, kind of translate. I mean, he played in Liga and he scored really well there, but we'll see with him. And then some of the other guys, Matt Savoie. Matt Savoie is like, if he hits, you're getting like Breda Point 2.0, but if he misses, it's such the risk with him where, the size where he may just may not get into the NHL if he's, 5'9". And we've seen smaller players in the NHL is moving towards, more skilled players and having smaller, players. And the Sharks aren't afraid to draft smaller players. And, when we did our locked on mock draft, I thought really hard about Matt Savoie or Lekierimaki, who were kind of the two guys on the board there. And I just felt Lekierimaki was kind of a safer pick. Again, Matt Savoie, he could turn into Brayden Point 2.0, and you would be really happy if that happened. But everything has to go right for him to do that. So I have Daniil Yurov in both. Oops, my bad. Daniil Yurov should be here. Maybe, I don't know, whatever. We'll skip him. We already talked about him. Liam Ogren, Ogren and Oslin. Again, I think we did these guys really early in our draft process, and if you haven't listened to those, go check those out. Where I think they're going to be great players, but again, it's that value, right? If you're getting these guys who are kind of, so Bob has them ranked. Again, Bob isn't the end all be all, but he's got these guys ranked 21 and 22 in the draft. And this is, we know Mackenzie's rankings are relatively close to, they're about as close as you're going to get to some of how the draft will probably work out. And it's a really good list to work off of. Again, it's the value of, if the Sharks are at 11 and they get one of these guys, it's probably going to work out for them, but maybe you could have gotten a better player. And if they move back and get one of these guys, then you're going to feel really happy about getting one of these guys. If you can get one of these guys, and then get another asset on top of it, then you're going to feel really happy. But if you're picking them at 11, again, I think they're both going to make the NHL. They're going to be fine players. It's just that value piece for them. So before we get into the guys I'd be ecstatic about, these are the guys that I'm like, yes, we're throwing a party on Locked On Sharks. Just want to let you guys know, of course, thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen every day. The NHL draft is going to be tomorrow. And our team of local hosts and draft experts are breaking it down with insights and analysis for every first-round pick. So please join me 15 minutes, or we'll see. We'll figure it out. I'll let you guys know. After the Sharks make their pick for immediate reaction to the Sharks moves, subscribe to Locked On Sharks on YouTube for all the latest breakdowns and live reactions on the NHL draft and more. All right, so we've gone through the guys where I'd be okay with them. You could talk me into them. I'd be pretty happy. And then these are the guys where I'd be ecstatic. And if you guys have been listening to Locked On Sharks, you probably know the four names here that I'm going to go through. So again, no order. Tomorrow, I'm going to make my final pick of who I think the Sharks are going to draft. But these are the four guys, right? I think they can, the combination of skills plus value is the guys here. So I think I'm going to start with Lekierimaki, who, the Swedish sniper, silky smooth, has all the, creativity. He's got the NHL caliber shot already. We've seen him play with Eklund. We know the beautiful chemistry that those two guys already have. And if the Sharks get him, they're adding a potential 40-goal scorer to their prospect pool. And the only other guy in the only other guy that really has a shot like this in the prospect pool is Gushin, who was a much later draft pick. But I think if you're getting Lekierimaki, he's going to spend a couple seasons in Sweden. We're not going to see him for a couple years, but you get him, you let him kind of cook, and then he's going to come over, and it's going to be like just Eklund and Lekierimaki. It's going to be beautiful. So number 2 of the 4 guys, Frank Nazar. So I think Nazar was like our first draft profile. If you haven't, go check out that one. He's on the Thomas Bordeleau plan, USNDTP. He's going to be able to play in all 3 zones. He's going to Michigan. Those guys, Michigan, they do an amazing job with their prospects and working them through and kind of putting them in different positions and letting them learn And, we saw with Bordelot with, 2 years at Michigan, and he jumps into the NHL and he looks like he belongs. And, I think Nazar can be on a very similar path of 2 years at Michigan, and then he's playing in the NHL type of situation. He's got a lot of amazing offensive skills, and I think he's going to continue to grow his game and to develop, and being in that nice, Michigan development program. If you're getting a potential 2C, like with Frank Nazar at number 11, who can, eventually take over for Couture type of situation, where you're hoping by then, 2 years from now, where he's taking, Couture can slide back to be a 3C or slide to the wing if Bordelot is proven himself. And then you've got a potential Hurdle, Bordelot, Nazar type of situation, and Bordelot and Nazar can be your kind of next guys up type of thing. So that's my, like, if they get Frank Nazar at 11, I'm going to be ecstatic. And then Kevin Krasinski, the defenseman, I think he's going to be the safest out of this tier, but I think if you're getting Shea Theodore, you're at number 11, you're going to be super happy with that, where, he's going to be able to play in all situations. He's going to be able to run your second power play unit. You can play him on the penalty kill. He can, create transition. He can help the offense. He can play D. He has size. He's going to be on a great team this year so he's going to continue to play meaningful hockey, playoff hockey, continue to grow and develop. And Krasinski is, I know a lot of people want forward, but if you get Krasinski, you're going to be really happy with him in a few years. Like that left side defense is a lot of, after Mario Ferraro in the future, it's a lot of question marks, and adding Kevin Krasinski is going to help solve a lot of those question marks. So Krasinski, Liz, that's for you. Krasinski to San Jose. Let's go. And then finally, Brad Lambert. He's got all the red flags in the world, but you look past those, you set those aside, and you look at the beauty that could be Brad Lambert. Those flowing locks, just doing insane stuff on the ice, insane skill. He's been put in bad situations. The great thing is with him, you can figure out what you want to do with his development. Like, if you want to send him to the juniors, he can go play in Seattle. Seattle Thunderbird has his rights, and he's going to go play on a really great team, as I was just talking about with Krasinski, who's going to be contending for a CHL championship season next year. If you want to put him on the CUDA and keep him in the warm embraces of the teal curtain, and let him go play with Tristan Robbins and Ozzy Weisblatt and Brendan Coe and Gushin, and let him kind of work through some of the problems, and continue to play against men that he's already been doing, and getting used to playing on North American ice against men, you can do that with him. Like, the flexibility in his development is actually something you don't really have options with some of these other guys. You can kind of control his development by putting him in the position where you think he's going to best succeed. So Brad Lambert, I know it's there. He could go all over the board. Like, he could be at, go 7 or 8, or he could go like in the 20s. But if he hits, you're getting potentially the best player in the NHL draft at number 11. And we saw this last year with Eklund getting the best player, potentially the best player in the draft at number 7. And then you could turn around and do it again, back-to-back years. This is how you get your Steph Curry and your Klay Thompson. Sharks, that's so. Anyway, so those are mine. If I missed anybody, if you have any questions on any of the guys or anything like that, please hit me up. You can find the show, of course, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. I'm there way too often answering stuff instead of doing my real job, but you guys can find me there. You can listen to the show wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Odyssey. Thank you guys. You guys made yesterday, the July 5th, the second highest downloaded day in Locked On Sharks history. Appreciate, and that does even include YouTube views. So with YouTube views, it was our most listened to and download day in Locked On Sharks history. But just straight downloads, you guys were the made it the most downloaded day. So I really appreciate all the support. Helping the podcast grow and continue to grow. YouTube, like I said, follow, subscribe there. Gonna have a bunch of draft coverage stuff for you guys. Gonna be all over that. I'm Thursday night on there for the draft. I took Friday off. I'm going to be doing draft stuff all day Friday. And then we're going to, of course, with free agency the week before, going to have you guys covered there as well. So make sure you guys are subscribed on there. And you can follow me on Twitter at myfryhole. And be back tomorrow with the final pre-draft show. And then we're going to get into the draft, guys. We made it. We've just about made it. So, yeah. Bye, friends.